Harold Hank Whitmore had been dying alone for 3 weeks. Room 314 at St. Mary's Hospital in Kansas City had become his tomb, a sterile white box where no one visited, where nurses treated him like bed number 7, where his only companions were faded photos of the chiefs scattered across his nightstand. At 82, with pancreatic cancer eating him alive, Hank spent his days staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his own labored breathing. On this particular Tuesday afternoon, as morphine barely touched the fire spreading through his abdomen, he heard something unusual in the hallway. Voices, excitement, the shuffle of multiple footsteps. Camera flashes reflected off his window. "Is this the room?" someone asked. "Yeah, the old guy who's supposedly a huge Chiefs fan," another voice replied with obvious disinterest. Hank quickly wiped the tears from his cheeks and tried to sit up straighter in his bed. He had been crying again, something he did every day around 3 o'clock when the loneliness became unbearable. But now, someone was coming, and he couldn't let them see him like this. The door swung open. Travis Kelce stepped inside, followed by a small entourage of photographers, publicists, and hospital administrators. The NFL star wore his practiced celebrity smile, the one that had graced 1,000 magazine covers and talk shows. "Hey there, champ! I heard we've got a Chiefs superfan in here," Travis announced with manufactured enthusiasm, his eyes scanning the room but not quite landing on Hank himself. Hank's heart stopped. This was Travis Kelce. Actually, Travis Kelce, standing in his room. But instead of joy, Hank felt overwhelming shame. He wasn't presentable. His hospital gown was stained, his hair unwashed, his face puffy from crying. The smell of urine lingered because the nurses took too long to help him to the bathroom. "Oh my God," Hank whispered, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were coming. I don't look." Travis's smile faltered for just a moment as he took in the scene. The obvious abandonment, the crushing loneliness, the raw desperation of a man dying with no dignity left. The cameras kept rolling. Hank's hands shook as he tried to smooth down his hair. "Please don't look at me like this. I used to be." Travis stood frozen in the doorway, caught between his instinct to flee this uncomfortable reality and the dozens of eyes watching his every move. Outside in the hallway, a reporter waited with a microphone. The cameras captured everything, and in that moment, Travis Kelce faced a choice that would either destroy his carefully crafted image or force him to confront the kind of human suffering he'd spent his entire career avoiding. What happened next would make nurses cry, but not for the reasons anyone expected. Travis forced his celebrity smile back into place, the muscles in his face working overtime to maintain the expression that had served him so well in countless public appearances. "Hey, no worries at all, buddy. You look great," he said with hollow enthusiasm, though his eyes couldn't quite hide the discomfort as they darted around the room, taking in the details he wished he hadn't noticed. The photographers positioned themselves strategically, their cameras clicking rapidly, as they captured what they assumed would be another heartwarming celebrity hospital visit. Kyle Morrison, Travis's manager, stood near the door, making subtle hand gestures to keep the energy upbeat and the visit moving along quickly. "I brought you something," Travis said, pulling out a signed football from a bag carried by one of his assistants. He held it up for the cameras, his smile bright and practical. "Thought you might like this for your collection." Hank's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind Travis expected. These weren't tears of joy, they were tears of mortification. "You didn't have to do that," Hank whispered, his voice barely audible. Look at me. I'm a mess. I smell bad. I probably look terrible in your pictures." The vulnerability in Hank's voice cut through the cheerful atmosphere like a knife. Travis felt his chest tighten as he watched this broken man apologize for existing in his own hospital. This wasn't how these visits were supposed to go. Usually, fans were excited, grateful, easy to please with a few minutes of attention and a photo opportunity. "So, you're a big Chiefs fan, huh?" Travis asked, falling back on his standard hospital visit script. "How long have you been following the team?" "Since 1963. Hank replied quietly, his hands trembling as he pointed to the faded photographs on his nightstand. My dad took me to my first game when I was 8 years old. Municipal Stadium. We lost, but I didn't care. It was magic. As Hank spoke about his decades of loyalty to the team, his voice grew stronger, but Travis noticed something heartbreaking in his tone. The desperate eagerness of someone who hadn't had a real conversation with another human being in weeks. Those are some great memories, Travis said, but his words felt hollow even to himself. He could see the hunger in Hank's eyes, the desperate need for connection, for someone to care about his story. It made Travis want to run. My son Brad used to watch games with me, Hank continued, seemingly unaware that he was sharing too much, saying things that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. Every Sunday for 20 years. But he won't. Hank's voice broke, and he looked down at his hand. He hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. Says I'm too much work now that I'm sick. The room fell silent except for the soft clicking of cameras. Travis felt trapped, caught between the expectation to maintain his upbeat persona and the reality of this man's profound isolation. Kyle cleared his throat meaningfully from the doorway, a signal that it was time to wrap up and move on to the next scheduled appearance. That's tough, man, Travis said awkwardly, unsure how to respond to such raw honesty. But hey, you've got the Chiefs family, right? We're all pulling for you. The emptiness of his own words made Travis cringe internally. Hank nodded politely, but the disappointment in his eyes was unmistakable. He had opened his heart, shared his deepest pain, and received nothing but a sports cliché in return. I know you're probably busy, Hank said softly, already beginning to withdraw. Thank you for coming. This is more than anyone has done for me in a long time. Travis stood there holding the signed football, suddenly aware of how staged and hollow this entire interaction felt. Hank was dying alone, abandoned by his own family, and Travis was treating him like just another item on his public relations checklist. Yeah, well, stay strong, okay? Travis said, placing the football on Hank's bedside table. Keep fighting. As they prepared to leave, Hank called out weakly, Mr. Kelce, could you? Would it be too much to ask for just one picture? Not for anyone else? Just for me? The request was so humble, so desperate, that Travis felt something twist in his stomach. Of course, buddy, he said, moving closer to the bed, while the photographers repositioned themselves. But as they took the photo, Travis could feel Hank's frailty through the thin hospital gown, could smell the medicinal odors and human decay that filled the room. It was too real, too raw, too far removed from the sanitized world of professional athletics and celebrity appearance. The entire visit lasted exactly 12 minutes. As they walked toward the exit, Travis felt relief flooding through him. He had done his duty, created some positive publicity, and could now return to his comfortable life, where suffering happened to other people in places he didn't have to see. But as they reached the hospital lobby, Sarah Walsh, a reporter from the local news station, stepped forward with her microphone and cameraman. Travis, how do you feel knowing that man is going to die completely alone while you go back to your million-dollar mansion? The question hit him like a physical blow. Travis stopped walking, his mouth opening and closing without sound as he struggled to find an appropriate response. The cameras were rolling again, but this time they weren't capturing a heartwarming moment. They were documenting his discomfort with an uncomfortable truth. I hope he gets the care he needs, Travis stammered, his usual media training failing him in the face of such a direct moral challenge. But you're not planning to visit him again, are you? Sarah pressed. This was just a one-time photo opportunity. Travis felt exposed, caught between his desire to say the right thing and his honest intention to never return to that depressing hospital. We'll see what the schedule allows, he said finally, a non-answer that satisfied no one. As they walked to their cars, Kyle clapped him on the shoulder. That was good work in there. A little awkward at the end, but nothing we can't spin. The photos will look great for your charitable image. But Travis wasn't thinking about his image. He was thinking about the look in Hank's eyes when he had asked for just one picture, just one small thing to hold on to. He was thinking about a man dying alone, while Travis worried about his schedule and his comfort level. That night, as Travis sat in his luxurious home surrounded by all the trappings of success, he couldn't shake the image of Hank's trembling hands or the sound of his voice breaking when he mentioned his son. For the first time in years, Travis found himself questioning whether the life he had built was as meaningful as he had always assumed. Travis woke up the next morning to his phone buzzing incessantly with notifications. Social media had exploded overnight, but not in the way Kyle had hoped. The photos from the hospital visit had been posted, and the public reaction was brutal. "Fake smile while a man dies alone," read one tweet with thousands of retweets. "Kelce looked like he couldn't wait to get out of there," said another. The most damaging post was a side-by-side comparison. Travis's bright, artificial smile next to a close-up of Hank's eye, which clearly showed pain and disappointment despite his attempts to look grateful. Kyle was already on damage control when he called. "It's not catastrophic, but we need to be proactive. The narrative is that you were cold and disconnected. We should plan another visit, something more genuine-looking this time." "More genuine-looking?" Travis repeated, the phrase sitting uncomfortably in his mouth. "You know what I mean. Spend more time, show more emotion, maybe bring some gifts, really sell the compassion angle." Before Travis could respond, his phone lit up with a notification that made his blood run cold. Someone had posted a video titled, "Chiefs fan dies alone while Kelce goes home to mansion." The footage, apparently taken by a hospital employee, showed Hank alone in his room after Travis had left, crying quietly into his hand. The video went viral within hours. Travis watched in horror as millions of people witnessed Hank's private moment of despair. The comments were merciless, directed not just at Travis, but at a society that allowed elderly people to die in such isolation. Against Kyle's advice, Travis found himself driving back to St. Mary's Hospital that afternoon. He told himself it was for damage control, to fix his image, but something deeper was pulling him back to room 314. When he arrived, he found chaos in the hallway outside Hank's room. Raised voices carried through the partially open door, and Travis could hear Hank's weak voice pleading with someone. "Please, Brad, I just want to talk to you. I'm your father." "You're a burden," came a harsh male voice. "You've always been a burden, and now you're an embarrassment too. Do you see what you've done? There are reporters outside because of your little stunt yesterday." Travis stepped closer to the door and saw a man in his 50s standing over Hank's bed, his face red with anger. This had to be Brad, the son who hadn't spoken to his father in 2 years. "I didn't ask for that football player to come," Hank whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't know they would take pictures." "Of course you didn't ask," Brad sneered. "You never ask for anything directly. You just lay there looking pathetic until people feel sorry for you." "Well, I'm done feeling sorry for you. I have my own life, my own family to worry about. I can't keep pretending to care about someone who gave up on life years ago." The cruelty in Brad's voice was breathtaking. Travis watched as Hank's face crumpled, the fight going out of him completely. "You're right," Hank said quietly. "I am a burden. I should have died months ago. Maybe then you could be happy." "Maybe I could," Brad replied without hesitation. "At least then I wouldn't have to pretend anymore." The words hung in the air like poison. Travis saw Hank's body go limp, as if his son's rejection had broken something fundamental inside him. Brad stormed out of the room, brushing past Travis without acknowledgement. Travis stood in the doorway, watching Hank stare at the ceiling with empty eyes. The man who had shown such enthusiasm for the Chiefs yesterday, who had tried so hard to be grateful despite his circumstances, now looked completely defeated. "I heard," Travis said quietly, stepping into the room. Hank turned his head slowly, surprise flickering across his features. "You came back?" "Yeah, I saw the video. The one of you after I left yesterday." Hank's face flushed with shame. "God, people saw that? How humiliating. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that." "You're apologizing to me?" Travis asked, incredulous. "Hank, you have nothing to be sorry for." But Hank was shaking his head, withdrawing further into himself. "Brad's right. I am a burden. I'm pathetic. I should never have." Travis found himself sitting down in the chair beside Hank's bed, without thinking about cameras or publicity or image management. There were no photographers' time, no entourage, no scripted responses. "Your son is wrong," Travis said firmly. "He's completely wrong." "No, he's not," Hank replied with devastating certainty. "I worked 60 years, raised 3 kids, tried to be a good man, and this is what I get." Dying alone while strangers pity me on the internet. Maybe I deserve this. The defeat in Hank's voice was total. Travis had never witnessed anything so broken, so completely hopeless. It reminded him uncomfortably of his own grandfather, who had died in a nursing home while Travis was too busy with football season to visit. Nurse Patricia O'Brien appeared in the doorway, her weathered face showing no surprise at finding Travis there. "You came back," she said, her tone neutral but her eyes watchful. How is he doing?" Travis asked. Patty's laugh was bitter. "How do you think? His own son just told him he wishes dead, in front of half the nursing staff." She looked directly at Travis. "But hey, at least you got your photo op yesterday, right?" The accusation stung because it was accurate. Travis had gotten exactly what he came for: a few minutes of positive publicity and some charitable photos for his social media. He had never intended to actually care about Hank as a person. "I know how this looks," Travis said. "Do you?" Patty challenged. "Because what this looks like is a rich athlete playing with a dying man's emotions for good press. We see it all the time. Celebrities who show up, take their pictures, and disappear back to their perfect lives while people like Hank die alone." Travis felt anger rising in his chest, but he couldn't deny the truth in her words. "So, what am I supposed to do? Pretend to care forever?" "Maybe try actually caring," Patty suggested sharply. "Just once. See how it feels." She walked away, leaving Travis alone with Hank, who had been listening to their exchange with growing agitation. "Please don't fight about me," Hank said weakly. "I've caused enough trouble. You should go home to your family. Don't waste any more time on me." Travis looked at this broken man who was apologizing for existing, who had been abandoned by everyone who should have loved him, who was spending his final days worried about being a burden to strangers. Something shifted inside Travis's chest, something that felt uncomfortably like genuine emotion. "Hank," he said quietly, "what if I don't want to go home right now?" Hank's eyes widened with a mixture of hope and disbelief. You'd stay? Even without the cameras?" Travis realized he was about to make a choice that had nothing to do with his public image and everything to do with the kind of person he wanted to be. "Yeah," he said, settling back in his chair. "I think I would." Travis stayed for 3 hours that day. Not because Kyle told him to, not because cameras were rolling, but because leaving felt impossible. Hank had been so surprised by his decision to stay that he had actually started crying again. But this time, they weren't tears of shame or despair. They were tears of disbelief that someone had chosen his company voluntarily. "Tell me about those Chiefs games," Travis found himself saying. "The real memories, not just the highlights." And Hank did. He talked about freezing in the stands during December game, about bringing his young children to their first football experiences, about the seasons when the team was terrible, but he showed up anyway. His voice grew stronger as he spoke, and Travis began to see glimpses of who this man had been before illness and abandonment had broken him down. "I worked construction for 43 years, Hank said, during a lull in their conversation. "Built half the office buildings in downtown Kansas City. Every day I'd drive past them and think, I helped make that. Gave me pride, you know." "What happened to that pride?" Travis asked gently. Hank's face clouded over. "Cancer happened. Retirement happened. Getting old happened. Suddenly, everything I'd built didn't matter anymore. My wife died 5 years ago, and after that," he trailed off, staring at his hands. "After that, I guess I just became invisible." Travis felt something twist in his stomach as he recognized the fear that had been lurking in his own mind for years. The terror of becoming irrelevant, of outliving his usefulness, of facing the end with nothing but trophies and bank statements for company. "Your son," Travis said carefully, "has he always been like that?" Hank sighed deeply. "Brad was a good kid, bright, ambitious. I was so proud when he got into law school, when he started his own practice, but somewhere along the way, success changed. Or maybe I just never really knew him at all." The parallel to Travis's own life was uncomfortable and unmistakable. How many people had he left behind in his climb to the top? How many relationships had he sacrificed for career advancement and public adoration? "I have a confession," Travis said suddenly, the words coming out before he could stop them. "My grandfather died in a nursing home 3 years ago. I was supposed to visit him the weekend he passed away, but I had a charity golf tournament that was good for my image. I chose 18 holes of golf over saying goodbye to the man who taught me how to throw a football. Hank turned to look at Travis with new understanding. You carry that with you. Every day, Travis admitted. I tell myself I was building my career, helping my brand, doing important work. But the truth is, I was just avoiding the uncomfortable reality of watching someone I loved fade away. And now you're here, Hank observed quietly. Yeah, Travis said. Now I'm here. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Hank spoke again. You know what the worst part is? It's not the dying. I've made peace with that. It's the feeling that my whole life didn't matter to anyone, that I could disappear tomorrow and the world would just keep spinning like I never existed. Travis felt tears threatening for the first time in years. Hank, that's not true, isn't it? Hank asked. My son wishes I was already dead. My other kids live across the country and call twice a year out of obligation. The nurses here see dozens of people like me every week. I'm just another dying old man taking up space. You matter to me, Travis said, and was surprised to realize he meant it completely. Hank's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to say that just to make me feel better. I'm not, Travis replied firmly. You matter to me because you're showing me something I've been too scared to look at. You're showing me what happens when we choose success over connection, when we prioritize image over humanity. You're showing me who I could become if I don't change. The honesty of his own words startled Travis. He had never spoken so directly about his fears, his regrets, his growing sense that all his achievements felt hollow and measured against genuine human connection. I spent my whole adult life chasing applause from strangers, Travis continued. Millions of people know my name, but how many of them actually know me? How many would sit with me if I was dying? Fame is a cruel master, Hank said, with the wisdom of someone who had watched from the outside his entire life. It demands everything and gives you nothing that lasts. Dr. Rebecca Martinez appeared in the doorway, her tired eyes taking in the scene with professional interest. Mr. Whitmore, how are you feeling today? Better, Hank said, and Travis could see that it was true. There was color in his cheeks that hadn't been there the day before, a spark in his eyes that came from being truly seen by another person. His vitals have been more stable today, Dr. Martinez told Travis quietly. Sometimes companionship is the best medicine we can offer. When the doctor left, Travis made a decision that would have horrified Kyle and confused his publicist. Hank, I want to bring someone to meet you tomorrow. My mother. She's been feeling pretty isolated since my dad died, and I think you two might understand each other. Hank's face lit up with something Travis hadn't seen there before. Genuine joy. You'd really do that? Bring your mother here? If you'd like to meet her, I would love that more than anything, Hank said, his voice thick with emotion. I haven't had a real conversation with another person in months, and now, he gestured helplessly, unable to finish the sentence. Now you've got me annoying you every day, Travis said with a smile. You're not annoying, Hank protested. You're a gift. I don't know what I did to deserve your friendship, but I'm grateful for it. Friendship. The word hung in the air between them, unexpected and profound. Travis realized that somewhere in the past few hours, this had stopped being about charity or image management or moral obligation. This had become about two men who had found something real in each other's company. As Travis prepared to leave that evening, Hank grabbed his hand with surprising strength. Thank you, he said simply, for seeing me, for choosing to stay, for treating me like I still matter. You do matter, Travis replied, squeezing Hank's hand in return. More than you know. Walking out of the hospital that night, Travis felt different. The weight of his grandfather's death still pressed on his chest, but now it was joined by something else. The possibility of redemption, of choosing differently, of using his remaining time to build connections that would outlast any championship ring or endorsement deal. He had no idea that by the next morning, everything would change again. Travis's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. What the hell do you think you're doing? Kyle's voice was sharp with panic. There are photos of you entering and leaving that hospital yesterday. TMZ is running a story about your secret visits to the dying fan. They're making it sound like either a publicity stunt or some kind of guilt trip manipulation. Travis sat up in bed, instantly awake. What kind of photos? Paparazzi followed you yesterday. They got shots of you looking serious, emotional, nothing like the happy charitable celebrity from the first visit. The narrative is that you're either fake or you're being manipulated by a dying man for attention. The accusation hit Travis like a physical blow. That's not what's happening. I know that, and you know that, but the public doesn't know that. And frankly, it doesn't matter what's really happened. What matters is how this looks, and right now, it looks bad. You need to cut ties with this situation immediately. Travis felt anger rising his chest. Cut ties? Kyle, the man is dying alone. His own son abandoned him. He has nobody. That's not your problem, Kyle said firmly. Your problem is protecting the brand we've spent years building. This whole situation is becoming a liability. A liability, Travis repeated, his voice rising. We're talking about a human being. We're talking about your career, Kyle shot back. Do you want to be known as the athlete who got emotionally manipulated by a dying fan? Because that's where this is heading. The internet is already calling you naive, saying you're being used. Travis hung up the phone and immediately called his mother. Mom, would you like to visit someone with me today? I want you to meet a friend. 2 hours later, Travis walked into St. Mary's Hospital with his mother, Donna Kelce, beside him. She had asked few questions about their destination, trusting her son's judgment in a way that made Travis feel both grateful and unworthy. But when they reached room 314, they found Hank in a state of distress that Travis had never seen before. His face was flushed with fever, his breathing labored, and his eyes held a wild, panicked quality. Hank, Travis said gently, approaching the bed. Are you okay? They're saying terrible things about you. Hank gasped, his voice barely audible. On the news, on the internet, they're saying I'm using you, that I'm manipulating you for attention. They're saying you're stupid for believing in me. Travis felt his heart break as he watched this dying man torturing himself over protecting Travis's reputation. Hank, I don't care what they're saying, but I do, Hank said desperately. You have a life, a career, people who depend on you. I'm just a selfish old man who's destroying your image because I was too weak to die alone quiet. See, Donna stepped forward, her nurse's training evident as she assessed Hank's condition. Mr. Whitmore, I'm Donna, Travis's mother, and from what my son has told me, you're not selfish at all. You're just human. Hank looked at her with wonder, as if he couldn't believe Travis had actually brought his mother to meet him. You're really his mother? He really wanted you to meet me? He did, Donna said warmly, taking the chair beside his bed. He told me you remind him of his grandfather and that you've been teaching him some important lessons about what really matters. But Hank was shaking his head violently. No, you don't understand. People are saying I'm taking advantage of your son's kindness. They're saying I'm a pathetic old man who's manipulating a celebrity for attention. Maybe they're right. Travis watched in horror as Hank began pulling at his IV line, trying to sit up despite his obvious weakness. I should end this. I should tell everyone to leave me alone so you can go back to your real life. Hank, stop, Travis said firmly, gently restraining his hand. Look at me. Do I look manipulated to you? Do I look like I'm here against my will? But your career, Hank started. My career will survive, Travis interrupted. But I won't survive losing another person I care about because I was too worried about what strangers think. The words hung in the air, and Travis realized he had just admitted something he hadn't fully acknowledged even to himself. He cared about Hank. Not as a charity case, not as a public relations opportunity, but as a genuine friend whose presence had become important to his life. Dr. Martinez appeared with test results that made everyone's blood run cold. Mr. Whitmore, I need to discuss your condition with you. The cancer has progressed more rapidly than we expected. We're looking at days, not weeks. The room fell silent, except for the sound of Hank's labored breathing. Travis felt the familiar urge to flee, to escape this uncomfortable reality, and return to his safe, controlled world where death happened to other people. But then he looked at his mother, who had moved closer to Hank's bed and was holding his hand with the natural compassion that had defined her entire life. He thought about his grandfather, dying alone while Travis played golf. He thought about all the people he had left behind in his pursuit of success and adoration. What do you need? Travis asked Hank quietly. I need to not be afraid, Hank whispered. I've been afraid my whole life, afraid of not being good enough, afraid of being a burden, afraid of dying alone, tired of being afraid. Travis made a decision that would cost him endorsement deals, social media followers, and the approval of people who had never mattered. Anyway, then you won't be alone, he said simply. I'll be here. Travis, his mother said softly, are you sure about this? The media attention? The criticism? Mom, Travis replied, looking at Hank's peaceful face, as the older man finally stopped fighting the reality of his situation. I've spent my whole adult life worrying about what people think of me. I've missed funerals for photo shoots, skipped family dinners for networking events, chosen image over authenticity every single time. I'm tired of being that person. Kyle called again that evening, his voice cold with professional disappointment. You're making a mistake that will follow you for the rest of your career. Maybe, Travis said, watching Hank sleep peacefully for the first time since they'd met. But it's my mistake to make. The media is destroying you, Kyle pressed. They're calling you naive, manipulated, weak. Your brand value is plummeting. Travis thought about brand value, about social media metrics, about all the numbers that had seemed so important just a week ago. Then he looked at Hank, who had spent his final conscious hours worrying about protecting Travis's reputation rather than his own comfort. Kyle, Travis said quietly, I think it's time for me to find out who I am when nobody's keeping score. Travis spent the next 48 hours learning what it meant to be truly present for another human being. He canceled 3 endorsement meetings, skipped a charity golf tournament, and ignored 17 calls from his publicist. Instead, he sat beside Hank's bed, holding the hand of a man who had taught him more about courage in 4 days than a lifetime of athletic achievements ever could. His mother came both days, bringing homemade soup and the kind of nurturing presence that had been absent from Hank's life for years. She told stories about Travis as a child, shared memories of her own father's death, and created the atmosphere of family that Hank had lost long ago. I never had a daughter, Hank whispered to Donna on his final afternoon, but if I had, I would have wanted her to be like you. Donna squeezed his hand gently. You're the father I would have chosen for Travis if his own hadn't been so wonderful. You've reminded him of what mattered. The end came quietly on a Tuesday morning. Travis was alone with Hank when his breathing became shallow and irregular. There were no cameras, no witnesses, no documentation of this moment for public consumption. Just 2 men who had found something real in the most unlikely circumstances. Travis, Hank whispered, his voice barely audible, thank you for choosing me. No one has chosen me in so long. Thank you for choosing me back. Travis replied, tears streaming down his face for the first time in years. Thank you for showing me who I want to be. Hank smiled peacefully. Will you tell people that I wasn't just a burden? That my life meant something? Your life changed mine, Travis said honestly. That means everything. Hank closed his eyes and died holding the hand of someone who cared about him, surrounded by the photographs of the Chiefs team that had given him joy for 60 years, in the presence of genuine love rather than obligatory duty. The funeral Travis organized was small and private. No media, no publicity, no photo opportunity. Just Travis, his mother, the handful of nurses who had known Hank, and Pastor Williams from the nearby church, who had tried unsuccessfully to visit Hank during his illness. Brad Whitmore came at the last minute, his face red with shame and regret. He stood apart from the others, crying silently as Pastor Williams spoke about redemption and the courage it takes to love someone without expecting anything in return. When it came time for Travis to speak, he had no prepared remarks, no carefully crafted message designed to enhance his image. He simply told the truth. Hank Whitmore taught me that the real measure of a life isn't how many people know your name. It's how many people you hold close when they need you most. I thought I was visiting him to make myself look good, but he ended up saving me from a life where looking good mattered more than being good. Travis paused, looking at the small gathering of people who had come to honor a man the world had forgotten. Hank spent his last weeks worrying that he was a burden to me. But the truth is, I was the burden, carrying around all this fear about reputation and image and success that never mattered anyway. He taught me to put that burden down. After the service, Brad approached Travis with obvious difficulty. I need you to know that my father wasn't always... when I was young, he was... Brad struggled to find words that could somehow justify his abandonment. He was proud of you, Travis said simply. Even after everything, he was still proud of you. That's the kind of man he was. Brad broke down completely, sobbing with the weight of regret that would follow him for the rest of his life. I can't take it back. Brad gasped through his tears. I can't take back what I said to him. I can't take back the 2 years I ignored his calls. I can't take back telling him I wished he was dead. Travis put a hand on Brad's shoulder, feeling the weight of his own regrets about his grandfather. No, you can't take it back. But you can carry the lesson forward. You can make sure you never leave anyone else to die alone. In the weeks that followed, Travis faced the professional consequences of his choice. He lost 2 major endorsement deals when brands decided his association with death and depression didn't align with their upbeat marketing strategy. His social media following dropped by hundreds of thousands as fans moved on to athletes who stuck to sports and avoided uncomfortable reality. Kyle fired him as a client, telling him he had become unmarketable and too risky for mainstream appeal. Sports commentators debated whether his obsession with a dying fan indicated mental health issues or a publicity stunt gone wrong. But Travis discovered something remarkable. He didn't care. For the first time in his adult life, he measured his worth by something other than public approval. He started visiting other patients at St. Mary's Hospital, not for cameras or publicity, but because Hank had shown him the profound impact of simply being present for people who felt invisible. He called his mother every day instead of every week. He visited his grandfather's grave and had the honest conversation he should have had years earlier. He began building relationships based on authenticity rather than mutual benefit. Nurse Patricia O'Brien, who had challenged him so harshly during his first visits, approached him one afternoon as he was leaving the hospital after visiting other terminal patients. "You know," she said, "I owe you an apology. I thought you were another celebrity using sick people for good press. I was wrong." "You weren't wrong," Travis replied honestly. "That's exactly what I was when I walked in here 3 months ago. Hank taught me to be something different. He had that gift," Patty said softly. "Even dying, even abandoned, he could still see the best in people. Made you want to live up to what he saw in you." 6 months after Hank's death, Travis received an unexpected call. A producer from a documentary series wanted to interview him about his experience, to explore the story of an athlete who had chosen human connection over public image. "We want to tell the real story," the producer explained, "about what it means to be authentic in a world that rewards performance, about choosing love over fear." Travis considered the offer carefully. The old Travis would have seen it as an opportunity to rehabilitate his image, to spin his relationship with Hank into a redemptive narrative that made him look good again. But the man Hank had helped him become had different priorities. "I'll do it," Travis said finally, "but only if you promise to tell Hank's story too. Not just my story, but his. He wasn't just a prop in my journey of self-discovery. He was a man who lived 62 years before cancer, who built buildings that still stand in Kansas City, who loved his family even when they stopped loving him back. He deserves to be remembered for who he was, not just what he taught me." The documentary aired a year later. It told the story honestly. Travis's initial discomfort, his selfish motivations, his gradual transformation through genuine friendship with a dying man. It didn't make Travis look like a hero. Instead, it made him look human. The night it premiered, Travis sat in his living room with his mother, watching their final conversations with Hank play out on screen. When it ended, they sat in silence for a long moment. "Do you regret it?" Donna asked finally. "Everything you lost? Everything it cost you?" Travis thought about his diminished fame, his reduced income, the criticism and misunderstanding he still faced from people who preferred their celebrities simple and uncomplicated. Then he thought about Hank's final word. "Thank you for choosing me." "No," Travis said quietly, "I don't regret it at all. Hank taught me that the only fame worth having is being famous to the people who need you most. The only success that matters is knowing that when someone was dying alone, you chose to sit with them. Even if the whole world thinks you're crazy for it." Travis smiled, remembering Hank's courage in facing death without the approval or support of anyone should have mattered. Especially then, he said, because that's when love is most real. When you choose it without any guarantee of reward. Outside, Kansas City continued its busy existence, full of people pursuing their own versions of success and recognition. But inside his quiet living room, Travis Kelce had found something more valuable than any touchdown or championship ring. The peace that comes from knowing that when it mattered most, he had chosen love over fear, authenticity over image and human connection over everything else. Hank Whitmore had died as he had lived his final days, surrounded by genuine care rather than obligatory duty. And in teaching Travis how to love someone without expecting anything in return, he had given him the greatest victory of his life.